Hello and welcome. I'm Redwater, and today we're talking about episode 2 of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I'll recap the whole episode as well as reviewing the episode in its entirety at the end. We open with narration about the laws of alchemy, equivalent exchange, and the taboo that is human transmutation. After the explanation, we get a shot of a train before entering it to see our main protags, the Elric brothers, Edward and Alphonse, as they discuss rumors about a priest in Lior who seemingly can summon flowers out of thin air. The brothers suspect that the priest has a philosopher's stone. We get a flashback of Ed reading about it in a book in hopes to learn more. They both hope that this is the final end of their search before we get hit with our title card for the episode, The First Day. After the title card, we're transported 10 years into the past to the house that Ed and Al grew up in Rezenbull. We hear their mom call out to them as they are currently ransacking their daddy's study so they can learn more about alchemy. Seeing the symbol on the floor that Ed drew, she scolds them before they show her what it's for. Their mother, Trisha, asks if their father taught them alchemy, but Ed remarks that they can't learn from someone who ain't around. Al explains they taught themselves from his books. Their mom praises them for their skills in alchemy, pushing their desire to learn. Unfortunately, due to an epidemic the summer of that same year, their mother ends up passing away. While at the gravesite, Ed proposes they bring her back with alchemy. Al reminds Ed that the books say that it's forbidden, but Ed says that it's fine, cause it'll be their little secret. Winry comes to get them for dinner as they sit and enjoy a meal together. The next day, on the way to school, Winry questions the book they're reading, aware that it's not from school. They tell her it's a secret and part ways before learning the meal for tonight, stew. After dinner, Ed and Al are at their family home, talking about how stew and science correlate with one another, as far as imagination to create it. Ed suggesting that all they need to do is use that same kind of mindset of imagination towards human transmutation. Reading books and studying under an alchemy teacher for several years with the motivation of wanting to see their mother smile again. Then one night, in the basement of their family home, Edward and Alphonse Elric attempted to bring back their mother with human transmutation, listing off the ingredients before cutting their fingers, adding their own blood, placing their hands palms down on the transmutation circle, and beginning. At first, everything looks fine. Before their transmutation rebounds, there's a drastic shift in energy. Al remarks that it feels like there's something there, before a large eye appears in the middle of the transmutation circle. Suddenly, Al's hand gets broken down. Before Ed can react, he collapses, suddenly looking back to see the same thing happening to his leg. Al cries out to his brother repeatedly as his body is deconstructed right in front of Ed's eyes. While reaching out for his brother, Ed accidentally touches one of the many black hands, breaking his brother down. Ed is transported inside the book and speaks with truth before getting pulled inside the book as pure knowledge of the universe, alchemy, and everything else is forced inside his head, making him think he's gonna die, before seeing a white silhouette of his mom, just barely out of his reach, before he's transported back in front of the book, asking to see it again, since he understands what went wrong now, and how he messed up. However, truth tells him he can only show him what he paid for. In confusion, Ed repeats the last two words spoken by Truth before his leg gets broken down and added to Truth, before we go back to the real world where Ed is wailing on the floor in pain, screaming for his brother, begging for his mother, before opening his eyes to see a grotesque creature reaching out for him. Ed snaps back to himself, begging for his brother back, tipping over a suit of armor as he demands his brother Alphonse, writing a symbol inside of the armor in his own blood, telling Truth, "You can have whatever of mine in exchange for my only brother." As Ed claps his hands together, we transition back to our present with Roy Mustang and Maze Hughes. After shortly speaking about an assignment, Hughes asks Mustang why he made Ed a state alchemist, even though he's so young. Hughes comments that if he's in the military, then Ed will see hell like they did one day. They part ways. Shortly after, we get monologue from Mustang saying that the boys have already experienced hell, and much worse. We go back in the past, this time 4 years earlier from the conversation with Hughes and Mustang. Mustang now at the Elric family home in Resinbull with Riza Hawkeye as they search for the Elric brothers. After appearing at Winry's family home, which doubles as an automail shop, automail being an automotive armored prosthetic for those who have lost limbs. Winry's grandmother, Panico, opens the door as Mustang barges in looking for the brothers. He finds Ed in a wheelchair and yanks him up, asking if they know what they've made at the house. Ed is silent, and Al asks for forgiveness, shakingly apologizing repeatedly for what they've done. Mustang explains to Panico the reasons he came to Resinbull, as he heard of a talented alchemist in it, giving examples like the imperfect human transmutation or the ability to bond a soul, explaining that these things make Ed an exceptional alchemist and that he should join the military. Mustang explains that he would receive special training and even be taught alchemy, possibly giving them the opportunity of getting their bodies back. Panico explains her side of how she went to the house after Ed and Al came to her door covered in blood. She tells Mustang that whatever was made by pure alchemy was not human. She says that the boys already went through hell once and asks Mustang if he expects them to do it again. In another room, Winry and Hawkeye talk. Winry asks Hawkeye if she's ever shot anyone, to which Hawkeye tells the truth, which is yes. Winry explains that she hates soldiers as her parents went to war, and that's where they died, expressing her fear that the same would happen to Ed and Al. Hawkeye explains that it's their choice and that they're not going to force them. It's a choice of whether or not they're going to stay stagnant in their despair or push forward to a possibility of hope and a possibility of getting their bodies back. Winry asks Hawkeye why she became a soldier, as Hawkeye says she has someone to protect, as Mustang comes out to announce their departure. Moved by her words, Winry introduces herself to Hawkeye properly and shakes her hand. As they leave, Hawkeye and Mustang discuss Ed, as Hawkeye says he had a soulless look in his eye, while Mustang remarks that there was a flame in his eyes. In an operating room, Ed makes the decision to join the military, explaining that in 1 year, he will master his automail and his recovery. Ed swears to Al that he's going to get his body back, as Al remarks that when he does, his will be with it, so they can both be whole again. After what we assume is a year, we see Ed and Al outside sparring with one another before Ed tries alchemy for the first time since he brought back his brother's soul. He transmutes his automail arm, as Al is amazed he didn't use a transmutation circle and doesn't need one like their teacher. Ed asks Al if he saw it, before we get a flash of truth before dropping the subject. Winry hits Ed with a wrench for transmutating his automail. He pokes fun at her as she proudly announces that she's going to help take care of his automail and his body until they get their regular bodies back. Ed is shocked, but Al knows what's up. Now, at his examination, Ed is ready to become a state alchemist. Fuhrer King Bradley decides to watch since a 12-year-old is taking the exams and he wants to see what all the commotion is about. As his exams begin, they ask Ed if he needs something to draw transmutation circles with, which he declines before putting his hands together and touching the ground, making a spear from it and charging at Fuhrer King Bradley, explaining that officials could be assassinated in this way, and they should conduct the exams safer. King Bradley takes this into consideration and wishes him luck on the rest of his exams. As Bradley walks away, we can see he was never worried as he cut the tip of the spear, therefore there will be no real threat to his life. Winry and Al wonder how Ed's doing in his exams, as Winry asks Al if they will leave if Ed passes, as Al says they will. Ed ends up passing and joining the military. He's given a silver pocket watch to show that he's been accepted, as well as his second name, which he will be known by, given to him by King Bradley, Fullmetal. From this point forward, Edward Elric is the Fullmetal Alchemist. On the train, Al wakes Ed up as they are approaching Lior. Ed questions whether or not they'll get any leads to the Philosopher's Stone in this town before the episode ends. This episode is just giving us a history dump of our main characters' goals and how they got to the point that they're at. Throughout the episode, we are shown the bond that the brothers have through their love of alchemy and the love they have for their mother. The transmutation rebounding was something neither of them expected. They worked hard and studied to understand it so they could hopefully pull it off and bring back their mom. Though their intentions were pure or selfish, depending on how you look at it, at the end of the day, this was still two kids committing the #1 taboo in alchemy, human transmutation. One of the mistakes I think the boys realized they made while trying to bring back their mom was that they literally end up losing themselves. Ed losing his leg, then sacrificing his arm to bring back his brother's soul, attaching it to a suit of armor. Al losing his entire body. Ed and Al still have each other, and the brothers are still together, but they aren't whole. This episode just explains why the Elric brothers are on the hunt for the Philosopher's Stone and their bodies. It's such a simple episode, giving us a rundown of our characters so that the viewer better understands the goal, as well as how we got to this point. But when I think about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, I think about this episode. The desires the boys have to see their mother again, the sacrifices they make, as well as the effort put in by both the Japanese VA and English VA. I don't speak Japanese, and I don't think you have to understand another language in order to hear emotion in a voice. While I kinda speak English, I can give my opinion on the English VA. I think he did a good job capturing the pain and urgency in this scene. I think he brought impact to it with his portrayal, and whenever I think about this scene, it always gets me.
No, this is wrong. This isn't what we wanted. Help us! Help us! Help us! This is all my fault. Help us! No, damn it! You won't take him too. Give him back. He's my brother. Take my leg, take my arm, take my heart, anything you can have it! Just give it back! He's my little brother, he's all I have left!
That last line, "he's all I have left," really shines more light on the fact that they know they made a mistake, in my opinion. Ed and Al know they have Winry and her grandmother, yet Ed says, "he's all I have left," which in a sense is true. Their dad off, their mom is dead, and for all intents and purposes, they represent the Elric name. They are the Elric brothers. They understand they shouldn't have tried to bring her back. But now it's time for them to work together to get their original bodies back and make themselves whole again. But what do you think? Would you have tried human transmutation? How do you feel about this particular episode? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget you can do anything you put your mind to. I'm Redwater, and that's all for me.